Welcome back. Last time, we learned the basics of while loops in Python. Today, we will explore some more advanced topics and techniques for working with while loops. Let's start with some tips for writing better while loops. Setting loop variables before the loop. It's a good idea to set up your counters or accumulators before you start the loop. Imagine you have a counter called index set to 0 and a total set to 0. Now you want to increase the total by the index and increase the index by 1 until the index reaches 10. In Python, you can do this using a while loop. Here's how. You start by saying while index is less than 10, then increase total by index and increase index by 1. When you run this code, it will increase the total by the index from 0 to 9 using descriptive variable names for loop counters and other temporary variables. Use names like I, j, etc. Imagine you have a counter called I set to 0. Now you want to print I and increase it by 1 until it reaches 10. In Python, you can do this using a while loop. Here's how. You start by saying while I is less than 10, then print I and increase I by 1. When you run this code, it will print numbers from 0 to 9, but use more descriptive names for accumulators. Imagine you have a total sum set to 0 and a condition that there's more data. Now you want to increase the total sum by the next data until there is no more data. In Python, you can do this using a while loop. Here's how. You start by saying while there is more data, then increase total sum by next data. When you run this code, it will increase the total sum by the next data until there is no more data. Checking for infinite loops. Make sure your loop will stop at some point. If you say while true, then print infinite loop. It will print infinite loop forever because true is always true. This should typically include a break statement or check that allows it to stop. We can use comparison operators like less than. You can say x is 0 and while x is less than 10, then print x and increase x by 1. When you run this code, it will print numbers from 0 to 9, or Boolean operators like int or not. You can say keep going is true and x is 0, and while keep going is true and x is less than 10, then print x and increase x by 1. When you run this code, it will print numbers from 0 to 9. Some differences versus a for loop. While loops are useful when we don't know exact number of iterations needed beforehand. We need to check conditions other than just sequence length. We want to break or continue conditionally. However, while loops can be more prone to errors like infinite loops if not constructed properly. Use break to exit loop and continue to skip to next iteration. I hope this makes it easier for you. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to explain.